My name is Christina Young. I'm Professor of Technical Art History and Conservation here at the University of Glasgow. I'm going to talk to you about a project that happened last year with one of our Technical Art History M.Lit students, Tom Burns. It's all about the painting of the Nilgai by George Stubbs. George Stubbs was commissioned by Hunter, the founder of the Hunterian Museum, in 1769 to paint the Nilgai. Two Nilgai had come in the 1760s to the UK as part of the Queen's Menagerie. We were interested in this painting because we understood that he'd painted in wax and caustic, a technique that I'll demonstrate to you in a little while. But this painting is also painted in oil on canvas. So the questions to us were, did he use wax and caustic on oil painting together? Why did he use it? And can we differentiate that from what's called the wax lining that this painting has? A wax lining is when a secondary canvas is adhered to the back of an original canvas. Here's a mock-up of such a thing. So this is the original, in this case a mock painting, and on the back is a lining where you can see this yellowness, which is the wax itself. What happens is the wax is applied to the back or front of the painting, is heated and pressed together. The trouble with this technique, in terms of us understanding the painting technique, is the wax infuses through the whole object into the front. So if Stubbs did paint some of the Nilgai in wax, it's hard to tell that apart from the conservation treatment that happened later. So what is wax and caustic? Well, first thing you need for wax and caustic is beeswax. In this case, we understand that for the paintings on canvas, he had a priming layer. Priming is oil paint combined, it's pigment of usually lead white and chalk with linseed oil. That's the first layer of paint that you put down before the design layers. Here we have a white priming layer. We then rub beeswax into the priming layer, covering it completely. So now we add chalk, or what's called whiting, to the layer of beeswax, and this stops the next layer, which is the oil, which is the water and pigment, from beading on the surface. So we just gently rub that in evenly and brush off the excess. We then use pigment which is bound in just water. We grind the pigment as Stubbs would have done. He would have ground the pigment. In this case we're using yellow ochre because we found yellow ochre and green verditer in the painting itself from the cross sections. We see in the Nilgai that we think this happened in the foliage of where he was building up texture in the foliage in yellow ochre and green verditer. So we apply the yellow ochre to the painting. Then when we think we've done the first stage, or the painting that we want to do this stage, we would then heat this up. Now Stubbs would have used an open hearth for this rather than what we're using today as a hot plate. So he would have held the painting in front of a fire without catching light of the painting. And what you see as this happens is as the wax melts, it encapsulates all the pigment particles and fixes the paint. And what also happens is it becomes darker or more saturated, so the true luminosity of the colour comes out. So here we have now paint that's fixed on the painting. What's interesting about this technique and what we've learned is that you can then paint again in oil paint. So we believe that what Stubbs did in this painting is he painted much of the Nilgai in oil paint first, and then the areas here, which is the foliage and in the tree, and this is Tom's reconstruction of the Nilgai, is he then built up these layers in wax. And then probably, in the final touch, he then went back in with oil paint for the highlights in these areas. So why is this of interest? Apart from the technical side of this, it's also that when we come to treat this painting, we're aware that there's wax in the upper layers. So cleaning has to be done very carefully, not to remove upper layers of paint or wax and caustic paint. And also the environmental conditions need to be thought about when looking after this painting. So we work with the Hunterian, with a technical examination and with our reconstructions to understand the whole object, and so that it can be displayed and interpreted within the collection.